Welcome to the Women Inspired podcast, brought to you by Modern Well, a beautiful woman-centered collaborative workspace in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm your host, April Seifert, psychologist, entrepreneur, and self-proclaimed life experience junkie. Each week, I will introduce you to a different woman who is succeeding and inspiring others in one way or another. We'll dive into her story, her successes, failures, and the lessons she has learned along the way, all with the goal of inspiring you to listen to that inner voice who keeps reminding you that there is something you want to take action on. You are so much more capable and powerful than you give yourself credit for. Inside of you is a woman on fire. Let's let her out and see what happens. Here we go. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Women Inspired podcast. My name is April Seifert, and I am your host. And this week, we are talking life design and personal development.
About a year ago, I had one of those really big waking up moments. I spent a lot of time figuring out exactly what I wanted to do, how I wanted to be, what I wanted my life to look like, feel like, sound like, smell like, all of these wonderful things.
That was a little clip from this week's amazing guest. This week, you are going to meet Sharon Podobnik. She is a values-driven, multi-passionate entrepreneur and professor. She serves as an executive leadership coach, and she's an adjunct professor of education at Johns Hopkins University. She is also the founder and the owner of Go Love Yourself, a women's empowerment organization where she brings one-on-one coaching, group coaching, and self-directed coaching to women across the United States through one of the most innovative mediums that I've ever seen somebody do. I can't wait for you to hear about it. So this week, we're going to be talking about all of the things that get me so excited. We're going to be talking about life design. You got just a little tip of the iceberg of that conversation just a moment ago. We're also going to be talking about how powerful coaching and self-development can be. And we're going to dig in to this amazingly innovative way that Sharon has dreamt up to help bring this information and these techniques to people and really help them apply them to their daily lives, because ultimately that's the way that we make the most of and get the most out of this amazing information. I absolutely cannot wait for you guys to meet Sharon Podobnik. Sharon, I am so excited that you are joining us for this episode today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
All right. So we've had a chance to chat a little bit today before our interview, and I had a chance to connect with you before about the work you're doing. And I am absolutely thrilled to share your work with my audience. But before we get there, can you help us get to know you a little bit and just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are?
Yeah, sure. No problem. So basically, it all started about 10 years ago when I joined Teach for America and did work in education. I started off as a middle school math teacher, kind of worked my way up through the education system in lots of underserved and under-resourced communities. And education is my thing. And so I spent lots of time in lots of different school systems, was in Philly, Tulsa, Miami, and then most recently, Washington, D.C. And last year, I got to this place where I realized that I was giving so much more of myself to my community and to my school than I truly and honestly had to give, and kind of tried to start over again. So I went back to school, went to Georgetown for their executive leadership coaching program, and became an entrepreneur. So I started a subscription box dedicated to women who are going through kind of those same similar struggles around figuring out how to take care of themselves and take care of the rest of the world, which is a really delicate and wonky balance to find. And I'm still teaching for Johns Hopkins. It's kind of my way of staying connected to the world of education. I teach in their Masters of Education program.
That's an awesome background. We have a smarty pants with us today, which I absolutely love. That's so cool. It sounds like so where I want to spend a chunk of time today is actually on your business on the GoLoveYourselfBox.com.
Yes.
I've spent some time on that website. It is just phenomenal, the work that you're doing. It sounds like it was inspired a little bit from your background in just giving too much. Is that the case?
That is absolutely the case. So I go into much greater detail on the actual website about the ins and outs and exactly what happened. But it was very much this really cool moment where I felt like I was waking up. And I've had these moments a couple times through my life, and I'm sure that you've experienced something like this too, where you kind of take a look at what's happening around you and realize that this kind of isn't right or isn't what you meant it to be. And there's this kind of waking up. And kind of like I alluded to before, about a year ago, I had one of those like really big waking up moments. And that's when I realized that I was absolutely exhausted. The work that I was doing was not, it's not even at my prime anymore because I was so exhausted and burnt out. And so I quit my job. I spent a lot of time figuring out exactly what I wanted to do, how I wanted to be, what I wanted my life to look like, feel like, sound like, smell like, all of these wonderful things. And I just started talking to my friends about that. And so many of them were in very, very similar places. Granted, a lot of us are in education. And so we're kind of feeling that same level of like teacher burnout, exhaustion, all of that good stuff. But what I realized is that so many of us were reading like self-help books or going to therapy or finding some way of kind of processing it independently. But so many of us were doing it in silos and not connecting with each other to say like, oh, you're feeling depressed. You've been going to therapy for 3 years to try to figure this out. My gosh, I've been doing the exact same thing. And kind of like a book club naturally sprung out of these conversations. Like we're kind of reading the same books anyway. Why don't we read those books together, talk about them together, and actually get real about how we're feeling and like how hard it is to be a working woman in this world and manage all of the different expectations, manage all of the different expectations that we put on ourselves, and to do something about it.
I love that you used the word expectation in there because there's been a lot that's been written on the notion that women these days who have a lot more opportunity than certainly, you know, our mothers did, than certainly our grandmothers did. It's this interesting shift in the pendulum, and I think this is probably what you're getting at with that. And it's this interesting shift in the pendulum where we can have it all, but that has turned into, you know, there's been a million blog posts on this. We do it all then. You know, there's been sort of this uptick in our ability to be professionals and seek out even entrepreneurial goals or anything in that realm that, you know, previous generations just didn't have access to. But there hasn't been a similar decrease in the other workload that so many generations of women have had on their shoulders. So it really is, it's an expectations thing. I think that is so spot on. I also think it's spot on when you were talking about how you had these waking up moments, like these moments where you looked around like, how did I get here? Like, what happened? And I think that is so normal. And not only is it normal for people to go through those waking up moments when sort of things have reached a head, like things have built up and they're not something that you can even ignore anymore. Right. But I think it's also important for people to almost schedule those waking up moments for themselves. Like, check back in. Is this actually what I want? Check back in. Is this going the way that I want it to? And it sounds like you got super intentional, which makes me want to hug you about super intentional about how you wanted your life to look and what you wanted to do. And you made some serious changes. That's awesome.
It's true, right? Like it did come to a head in that moment, but it's funny that you say like doing that intentionally, because my husband and I do that intentionally every New Year's anyway, right? Like we don't set these really ridiculous New Year's goals or resolutions that, I mean, you mentioned all those crazy blog posts, right? Like we don't set a million resolutions about things that we want to see, like losing 50 pounds or whatever that thing is. But we do set New Year's intentions because that is the time of the year that it feels most natural to most people. And so we will take a step back and look at how we're feeling, look at kind of like the state of our lives and just set intentions around different facets of our lives. And I'm happy to share kind of the worksheet that we go through, but they include things like family time. Have we spent enough time with our family in the past year? And what would we like that to look like in the next year? Finances. Have we been values driven in our finances? Is there something that we need to do differently, right? So it's not necessarily, I mean, it does include career and health and those kind of like natural things that happen with resolutions, but it's so much broader than that. And we end up setting really cool intentions that kind of help us to make sure we don't get to that point of how did I get here? Because they include things like love, happiness, like what are we doing that's getting us back into nature and reconnecting with ourselves in addition to some of those other things.
That's awesome. And I like that you used the word intention and not necessarily resolution. You know, sometimes the New Year's time period gets sort of a bad rep. Like people say, oh, that's so stupid. You shouldn't be reflecting back then. I take kind of the same approach that you do. There's this interesting book called The Power of Moments, and it's more of a marketing or business type book. But what the book talks about is there's moments in the case of the book, there's moments in a customer's journey that are really critical. The beginning of things, the end of things, or a big transition period when something is shifting over. Those moments are super critical and really important. And if you can capture and capitalize on those moments, that's when people are really receptive to something good or bad happening to them, or they're receptive to doing what you're talking about and setting new goals and intentions. So for me, New Year's is, the end of one year, the beginning of another. It's a perfect example of one of those moments when we just naturally are open to making changes. And so I think that's really cool that you guys go through that. And if you would be willing to share that worksheet, I know people would be interested in it.
Happy to, absolutely.
So talk a little bit about, for my audience who has not been creeping on you on the internet the way that I have, and I do this to everybody, so I mean, don't feel like I've been stalking you too much, but for people who haven't had a chance to go to your website and see everything that you're doing, talk to me a little bit about what you're doing on your website and why.
The Go Love Yourself box was built out of this idea that we need to spend more time going and loving on ourselves. And so every single month, you get a box delivered to your doorstep that is essentially designed to be two things. One, coaching in a box, and two, a way of loving on yourself. Starting with that first one, this idea of coach in a box, you get the materials each month to basically self-direct your own coaching journey in a particular area of focus. It's truly designed to take personal growth and self-help books, which get a pretty bad rap for being just spiritual entertainment and feel-good stuff, and make it actionable transformation. So, for example, I'm going to give you guys a little sneak peek. Our next box is Big Magic, which is all about creativity, right?
I love that book. I love that book so much.
It's so good. And the danger there is that you read this lovely, inspiring, wonderful book, you put it back on the shelf, and so do all of your hopes and dreams. They live and die on the shelf with all of your books, right? And that is absolutely not the point of these books. The point of these things are to, yes, be inspired, but then also do something about it. So when you get the book, you get a workbook. So I mentioned being a teacher for 10 years, and I take all of my ELA teacher skills and I take the book and turn it into an adult-facing workbook where you set goals, you track progress, you capture ideas, you reflect on your progress, all of these wonderful things. And then going in line with the second aspect, the self-love, there's always somewhere between 3 and 5 self-care items that help you to put the ideas in the book into practice. So it really is about taking care of yourself and doing something about it. I have 2 favorite boxes, I'm going to be honest. I'll go with my most recent favorite box. In June, we did a box on forest bathing. Are you familiar with forest bathing?
No, I'm not.
Yes. So it's essentially helping us to get back in touch with nature and spending time being mindful in nature so that we can reconnect with ourselves. And there's a gentleman in Japan who is like the world expert on it. He wrote this wonderful book detailing essentially like all of the therapeutic benefits of spending time specifically in forests, hence forest bathing, but also just in nature in general. So in that box, you'll get the book, a workbook with 9 different activities on how to be more mindful in nature, things to do, especially if meditation is like not your jam and it's not something you do every day, this kind of eases the process. And then there's a handful of items in the box that help you to bring the idea of nature with you throughout your day, because we can't spend, it's not realistic, right? It's not realistic to spend every single day in trees and forests and nature, especially if you live in a city like I do. I'm in downtown DC. And so I cannot be spending all day in nature. It just, of where I am, it doesn't work. So in that box, you'll also get like cedar and pine bath salts so that you can take a bath on Sunday and kind of like take advantage of all the therapeutic effects of like the aromatherapy that comes with it, of slowing down and of being more mindful. And then there's a lava stone aromatherapy necklace. So you put a couple drops of the cypress oil that comes in the box onto the necklace. And then as you're going through your day, if you have to go to work, if you're going to pick up your kids, whatever it is that you're doing, you can always stop, take a deep breath, smell, like actually stop to smell the roses, right? Like stop to smell the cypress trees and then continue on, so that you're both reading the book, taking the time to be mindful and reflect and set intentions around time in nature and slowing down. And then for moments when you're actually going out and doing the damn work, you have opportunities to experience this throughout the day, throughout the week, when you're not necessarily spending time in nature. Does all of that make sense?
It totally does. And it's so awesome because, I mean, we connected about this a little bit before we hopped on the recording, but I love that you've given so much thought to, I mean, there's amazing information out there, right? Yeah. And sometimes people, I don't know. I'm going to say I'm going to just pick on myself. I'm going to say I was one of those people. I would say a handful of years ago, before I really started to take a critical eye and do some of that intentional reflection on how I wanted things to go, I was exactly that person who didn't realize how much there was out there and how much control I had in going after it, and really how much I could dictate how my day went and how life feels. And as part of that process, you sort of naturally move into, well, I, as the main actor in my life, hopefully you're the leading person in your own life, right? Like I, as that actor, the better I am and the stronger I am and the more adaptive and resilient and capable and confident and all of those words that I am, the better I'm able to actually set up life in the way that I want it to be. And so you move into this sort of self-help space or personal development space. And sometimes people can, and I was that person who was skeptical of this, who thought it was kind of dumb. Like, really, you need to read books to make yourself, a good person? It's incredible the knowledge and information and value that's out there. But you're right, it doesn't work unless you're actually putting it into practice. It doesn't work and doesn't change the way that your day feels, which ultimately is, I think, what we're all after. We're all after making our day and our life feel as abundant and aligned and vibrant as we can. That doesn't happen unless you put things into practice. And it's so cool that you're really thinking through how to help people do that, because sometimes, you need some ideas. You need somebody to help you do that.
Absolutely. And, kind of in line with what you said, I was incredibly hesitant to believe that this world would be good for me. And I think part of it, right, is like this hesitation to take control and to allow yourself to be in control. And for some folks, it's wrapped up in some really deep histories and stories, right? If you have experienced some serious childhood trauma, it is incredibly difficult to get out of that mindset and like, trust when I say it's not just mindset here. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, especially in the world of trauma resolution, to put yourself in the driver's seat and out of like victim mode. And I hope that doesn't come across as like disparaging in any way, because it is real. And I say that as somebody who spent 5 years in therapy dealing with a lot of stuff. And it can be really, really daunting to say like, well, shoot, my current situation is somehow wrapped up in my beliefs about myself and the world around me. And there's a wealth of information out there, both in story and strategy form, in these personal development books, right? And like we mentioned, they kind of get a bad rap. Some of them get a bad rap for just being stories driven and like, great, you did it. How do I do it too? But sometimes that's what you need. We need community and connection in order to make a lot of these changes. And unless we see that somebody else has done it, it can be really hard for us to see how we can do it ourselves. And so some of these are just entertaining stories that we can connect to, we can relate to it, something within it resonates in us. And then we feel a little bit better, like, well, shoot, if they can do it, I can do it too. And then some of them are really strategic and strategy driven, right? Like here is a checklist for, we'll go with the 10 gifts of imperfection, right? Here are the 10 guideposts that help you to cultivate a wholehearted life. Some people need it spelled out like that. Either way, like you mentioned, it's about doing the work. If you want to see the change, there's work that needs to be done. And I think if used correctly, these books and strategies and stories really help to propel us and create that momentum.
Love that. The other notion that you mentioned as you were talking about sort of how the box functions and the contents of it and what your vision is for it, you mentioned that it's like going through this coaching program,
Yes.
via the things in the box. That's another aspect that people can have a hard time with. Like they'll go to the doctor when they're sick. People will even hire a trainer at the gym more readily than they will hire somebody to help them think about how to more effectively live their daily life, which is amazing to me because that's ultimately that's the ultimate experience, right? How your day-to-day life feels. That's it. That's the it right there. What is it about coaching that's so powerful in your mind?
Oh my gosh. Where do I start? So the thing that is fundamental about coaching, and this is where I might get a little soapboxy because I'm so passionate about the power in coaching.
Hey, thump on that soapbox, man. I'm all over that. So go for it.
I appreciate the permission there. But coaching is really about helping the individual being coached to observe themselves and the world around them in ways that create new perspective and new possibility. And once you, as the observer of yourself and the world around you, see new possibility, then and only then are you able to act on it. And so the fundamental role of a coach is to sit across from you in absolute partnership, seeing someone who is whole and complete and resourceful and has every single thing that they need to be happy and healthy and successful. And my job as the coach is to help pull that out of you, to believe in you until you believe in yourself, and to help create new possibilities and new perspectives for you to see even where to go. And then once you're able to see where you're headed and how you could get there, to help, in some cases, be the accountability that gets you there. In the purest of forms, coaching is just helping to create new possibilities and asking you the questions that help you to discover what's already in you, right? And this is where I get a little bit soapboxy because the lines between coaching and consulting can really, really blend here when some people come in and, look for motivation and inspiration and tell me what to do. You're so magical and wonderful and all of these things that you've accomplished for yourself. How do I do what you do? But that is absolutely not the point. The point of coaching is for you to uncover these things that are already within yourself and bring them to life. And so that is part of what the box does, right? It's putting the power back in your hands to say, what is it that you want for yourself? And I'm glad that you mentioned and brought the box back into this because, a book can get you so far, a workbook can get you so far. Each of these are steps in the right direction, but they might not get you all the way there, especially if you've been stuck on something for a hot minute. A book might not get you all the way there. So we have two things that help with that process. We have a Facebook community that I'm low-key obsessed with. And lots of women get in there and they're like, hey, I'm dealing with imperfection around parenting. Help. Who's here? What are you doing? I need some help in this realm. And that's a very supportive community where people are like, dude, I'm right there with you. Here's what I do. I don't know. Try this. What have you done? What have you done? And people just share and are so loving and generous and encouraging. and are really just there to like see each other thrive. And that can get you another part of the way. But sometimes there's still something that is unresolved within you, undiscovered, some kind of obstacle. And coaching is the magic there that helps you. Like, listen, it is one-on-one. There's no distractions. It is me being absolutely present for you and helping you to figure out what is the thing that's in the way. And it might be something that you literally have never even acknowledged before in your entire life. So as part of the box, you get a free 30-minute coaching session with one of our vetted coaches. So I go through the work of like finding experts every single month who are an expert on that topic. So in April, we had a sleep box and I got sleep experts in the box to answer your phone call and say like, listen, I read the book. I get it. I have blackout shades. I use earplugs. I'm still not sleeping. Help. And somebody will literally pick up the phone and talk to you right then and there to help you figure out your particular situation, right? Because when you get a book, it's not going to talk back to you. You might need somebody to sit down with you and be like, okay, you're doing all of the things, right? But what else is going on for you? You're not sleeping. It's not because you don't have eye shades on. Why aren't you sleeping? Like, what's actually going on for you? And then you'll realize that your brain is racing and earplugs aren't going to resolve that, right? You have another human who is dedicating their time, energy, and attention to you and you alone to figure out what the thing is that is competing for your attention. What else is going on for you and what can we do about that? And it's, that's something that you might not get anywhere else. And some people have never experienced. It can be quite disarming to sit across from another human being and get their absolute and undivided attention on you for a full 60 minutes.
I bet.
Right?
I
like
bet.
How often do you come home and like you might talk to your partner or your kids and they want to talk about them and they might be like, hey, how's your day? And that's kind of where it ends. But this is like 60 dedicated minutes to you with somebody who is absolutely and 100% invested in seeing you be your absolute best and happiest and healthiest self so that you can feel abundant, so that you can feel aligned, and so that you can feel good about what it is you're doing in this world.
That makes me so happy. That was the best soapbox ever. It was really great. And I totally can feel your passion for what you're doing. And it's so pure that you absolutely want the best for people and you want them to have the best possible experience, which is why you're doing what you're doing. And I just think that's so amazing. And before we had this interview, you and I were actually talking a bit about the notion of coaching, and you talked about how you yourself have made some intentions, or I think the word you used was declarations or something like that, about yourself as a coach. And it gave me goosebumps. So I'm wondering if you're willing to share that, because I think people will just adore hearing a little bit more about that passion of yours.
Sure. And thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. So as you mentioned, coaches come up with a declaration about who they are as coaches and the impact that they want to have in the world. And so I have two that I would be more than happy to share. I will believe in you until you do. And the second one is that I will help you to give yourself the permission that you need to be who you are and stand in your authentic power so that you can feel the relief of being you.
Those are both huge. I can if you think about, I'm one of those people who believes that words absolutely matter. The way that we choose a particular word versus another one, whether we speak in, first or third person, like those sorts of things really matter and have an impact. Yeah. And you can tell that you have been very careful about choosing the way that you word those two declarations, because they're both really powerful.
Thank you. And words do matter, right? And the words that you say to yourself matter. And the words that you say to other people matter. All of that. matters so much.
Absolutely. And I want to start with the first one. So this notion that you will, and I'm totally going to butcher it because I don't have exactly the words in front of me, but you're going to believe in other people until they can. So I did an episode, months and months ago on the Mentee podcast. I was an episode, or I was a guest on their episode or their podcast. And one thing I said is that to me, that's what a good mentor does for you. They like lend you belief and they lend you confidence when you need it. And I talked about, as I was starting my businesses, I did not feel confident. I didn't at all. I knew that I wanted to try and I was willing to move forward anyway, but I didn't have the sure footing that I felt like I needed to be able to go out there and sell myself and sell my value and my skill set and that type of thing. And other people in my life, my husband being one really big one, lent me confidence during that time period. So for people who might be, well, maybe you're at one of those points that we talked about before where you're doing either an intentional or maybe like it snuck up on you and it's an accidental review of how your life is going right now. When you're getting ready to make changes or you feel like something isn't quite aligned and it's not quite right, that's the time when you really do need somebody to lend you confidence and lend you that belief that you absolutely can do it.
And I would add to that if there's a reason that you're not feeling confident, there's something there. And I couldn't agree more. A mentor's job is to lend you that confidence and to say, you know what, it's totally possible. Here's how we're going to do it. I think the coach's role in that is to say, okay, yes, and what's under that? What's preventing this confidence? Because I know that you're awesome. I see it, even if you don't. What's stopping you from standing in your confidence?
That is huge. Yeah. That's huge. And then two, to the second, I've had a number of interviews in the past where guests have talked about just the transformation their life has gone through in terms of how it feels. So in many cases, they've felt more confident, even though it was something they were afraid to do. They were afraid to be themselves. But when they did, all these doors opened and they felt way more confident and they just felt way more stable and, able to live the life that they truly wanted to live. And I love that you give people permission to do that because for some dang reason, we all feel like it's really hard. Like somehow we think we are these absolute weirdos and like can't be ourselves and everyone will reject me and whatever. It's not the case, but it's such a near universal feeling. And it's such a need for people to have someone who can tell them that it is okay. It's okay for you to go out there and be your own weirdo, like be your biggest weirdo. That is totally fine. And I love that that's one of your declarations.
Thank you. Be your biggest weirdo. I love everything about that. And I think we should write a book called Be Your Biggest Weirdo. I love that.
I've had some just amazing, amazing guests who have hit on both of those. If you haven't seen Susan Dank's episode, she is the CEO of White Crane Construction. She is wonderful. She touched on that. And then also Nancy Lyons touched on the fact that she is an absolute weirdo and totally embraces it. And I hugged her at the end of that episode. So, some really powerful people are out there doing it because they have stepped into that authenticity that you're letting people and giving people permission to do.
Well, because if you think about it, everyone's a weirdo. It's just how much you are willing to admit it to yourself. And then once you admit it to yourself, how much you are willing to, unfortunately, in some cases, put on the line. Are you willing to be your 100% most authentic self with your partner? And are you ready for what happens? Because one of two things is going to happen, right? It's either going to be the absolute best thing you've ever imagined, or unfortunately, there might be a rejection. And are you okay with that too? My hope for you is that it is absolutely okay because you want to be your most authentic self. And by God, you're going to find somebody who loves every aspect of that in the same way that I really, truly hope that you have embraced it for yourself and love every aspect of yourself too.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so you obviously have put an incredible amount of thought into all all of the work that you're doing on your website. Help give us just some direction again, like tell people where they can find you, because I know like this, when I first heard about you, it completely piqued my interest because it's a method that I don't see anyone else doing. And it's just such a cool offering that you have. So help people find you. Where can we find you and learn a little bit more?
Absolutely. So the best way to find more about the box is actually to go online to our website, www.thegoloveyourselfbox.com. We have a pretty robust Facebook community, so feel free to find us online as well. I'm happy to share the links to the Facebook group and all of that lovely, wonderful stuff for the show notes. And then if you are looking to get in touch with me specifically, the best way is actually to honestly just email me. And my email address is podobnik.sharon, which is my name, at gmail.com. That's PODOBNIK.Sharon, SHARON, at gmail.com. I love talking to people, clearly, about embracing themselves and being who they are and stepping into their most wonderful, authentic selves. So if that's you and you have a question, or this is like resonating with you in a big, big way because you feel it and you're there, I'm absolutely more than happy to chat about it with you.
Love that. Thank you so much. Before I let you go today, though, I have to ask you one last question that I ask everybody on the podcast. We have a Spotify Power playlist that we're putting together, and every single song on it has been contributed by one of the amazing women that I have interviewed over the couple of years that I've been doing the podcast. So I have to ask for your favorite motivational song to add to our podcast or our playlist.
Absolutely. Yes, it is Vacation by Dirty Heads. I listen to it every time I need to pick me up.
I literally don't know that song, and I'm going to Google it right now because it's
going to change your world. It's going to rock you.
I love it. That's awesome. This has been wonderful, Sharon. Seriously, the work that you're doing is so thoughtful and so robust. It's just really great to see you taking something you're so passionate about and have worked so hard on and putting it out there to help benefit other people. So I really appreciate you both sharing your story and telling us a bit about how everything that you're putting together works and how it can benefit us. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, I so hope you guys enjoyed meeting Sharon Podobnik as much as I loved interviewing her. When I came across her amazing service to deliver self-development and personal development and personal growth subscription boxes directly to people's homes, I knew that I had to learn more, and I am so excited about our conversation. Now, as usual, I want to plug a couple of things, and you know where I'm going to start. I'm going to start with life design. I'm just dying at how amazingly intentional Sharon was about the shift she made in her career and how she really sits down with her husband every single New Year's Eve and thinks about how they want that coming year to look and feel and the goals they have and the places they want to spend their energy and their time and their money. That is the epitome of life design. That is the epitome of intentional lifestyle and intentional living. I absolutely adore it. So I love that she not only, she mentioned earlier, and I threw the clip in the intro about how she had a waking up moment. And a lot of us have been there, right? Like something big happens, or maybe a million tiny little paper cuts happen. And at some point we open our eyes and we have what she called a waking up moment. And we realize, this is not what I want. This is not how I want my life to look. Now that's great. And it's amazing when you can recognize that and absolutely take that opportunity to make changes. But even more than that, I want to encourage you guys to, on a regular basis, do that very thing. Take stock of how your life is looking and feeling and see if it lines up to the way that you want it to look and feel. Does it align to your values? Does it align to the way that you want to be spending your energy, time, and money? And if it doesn't, work on ways to make tiny shifts to bring it back into alignment. I'm going to plug my life blueprint, and I'll leave a link to this in the show notes if you want to get a copy of it. The whole reason why I put that tool together was to give people a really straightforward way of doing exactly what Sharon was talking about. Taking an intentional look at the major areas of their life to figure out what's going well, what's not going well, and how can you start to make subtle shifts and subtle changes to bring things back into alignment. How do you want to be spending your time and your money and your energy? It's a really big deal that you pay attention to that and really give it some critical thought from time to time. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you want to start doing that with your life, I highly suggest you head over to Sharon's show notes page, click the link in her show notes page to download my free life blueprinting tool. I really think you're going to find a lot of value in it. Before we close out today, I want to say thank you to my producer, Cameron Hill, and to my incredible sponsor, Modern Well. If you want to learn more about how you can reach your goals in a one-of-a-kind work-life community, visit www.modernwell.co. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone else who might benefit from this inspiring message. And if you have a moment, click the link in the episode description to leave me a rating and a review on iTunes. It would mean so much to me. Finally, I want to remind you that it is absolutely possible to live a happy, fulfilling life, even in spite of all of the chaos and demands we all experience. Sign up at aprilseifert.com to gain access to tools that will help you do just that. I have carefully created and curated a set of tools that combine the powerful fields of psychology and design thinking to help you intentionally create a fulfilling, happy life you love. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and until next week, stay inspired.